What does freedom look like to you? What reminds you of freedom? Of choice? This varies depending on who you ask. Sometimes there are things in your life that you cannot control, and sometimes it feels like nothing going on happens to be in your control. A part of life is where we learn to accept what we can control and accept what is out of our hands. I find that a lot of what happens in life comes down to a singular question that I ask myself. How do I respond to this situation? Not everything in life is in my hands. I cannot control the emotions or feelings of others, but I can control my response and my emotions in any given moment. This has led me to focusing on how I can keep my cool in chaotic moments, whether it be work, school, personal, or church related. I find myself wondering what the next best step to take will be. However, sometimes we don't know enough of what's going on, and despite making what seems like the best decision, we will inevitably make a bad one. After that comes the consequences of what we can or need to do to either make amends, accept responsibility for our actions, and move on. Not everyone will afford us grace and understanding, and sometimes will be quite harsh as they don't know everything about us, nor do we know everything about them. But when it comes to life, sometimes we can't make decisions that aren't necessarily good or bad, but it will change the shape of our futures. Some of us give up on dream jobs in pursuit of stability. Some say come hell or high water, they will fight for that dream until it happens. In life, we all make decisions that shape our futures, but sometimes we head down a path we don't understand, looking for understanding. This is how I view the anime Call of the Night. Call of the Night is the second series done by writer and illustrator Kotoyama. His first, that many probably forgot, was Dagashi Kashi, which honestly explains a lot if you've seen both series. A series about discovery, both in self and community, and what the future could hold for each protagonist. The women in the series being spunky, quirky, energetic gremlins with amazingly expressive eyes draw you into each character's interactions and dynamics. People in Kotoyama's work wear their emotions on their sleeves, and I think that's a monumental strength in his art style. Call of the Night was inspired by the song Yofukashi no Ota by Creepy Nuts. The song in English translates roughly to Call of the Night, hence why it became the end credit song. This series was inspired by music, and the visuals and soundtrack carry that legacy well. Season 1 of the anime aired in 2022, and in July of 25 its second season debuted, much to my excitement, and the excitement of a few others. However, it seems as if few people talk about this anime, so I am here to convince all of you why you should give it a chance. The easiest way to describe this anime is a coming-of-age story set to lo-fi music. At least, that's the opening hook, and it works great. Yamariko is a 14-year-old middle school kid. He has spent his time being an example student. He went to school, got decent grades, and seemed to have some friends. However, to him, he was uncertain of all of this, but that never affected him until one day. A girl from his class confessed her feelings to him, and he rejected her, saying that he can't return her feelings because he doesn't understand them. Ko is a young child who does not understand romance. It's not that he hated or disliked this girl, but attraction and romance aren't feelings that are fully awakened in him. He just doesn't understand. I think this part of Ko stands out among anime protagonists because he's a late emotional bloomer. Think back on the parts of your childhood that you can remember. Do you remember when you went from ew girls or ew boys to hey there? To be honest, I know that there was a time that I was like that. At least, I've been told as much, but I can't remember it. I've been interested in girls since I was young, some citing that growth hormones in some US foods might have accelerated some aspects of my growth and many others in my generation. I began to shave my face every day when I was in 5th grade at 10 years old. In this environment, many of my classmates were also the same. We were 10 to 11 years old and puberty hit a lot of us. Dating was something that happened a lot back then. And I was asked out by a girl, and I said yes because it sounded cool. However, 10-year-old me was not a good boyfriend. I didn't understand romance. I didn't understand what dating was or what the connotations were behind it. I understood it could lead to, or at least factored in love somehow, but I didn't understand this at the time. Thus, 10-year-old me was distant, unknowing, and difficult to talk to, as I was confused because there were expectations on me that I didn't understand. Yet, unlike Ko, I said yes to the uncertain while he said no. As far as I see things, Ko is in that part of his life. He even says as much, that he doesn't understand the emotional depth of love and romance. In theory, he understands it, the principle and idea, but not the feeling itself. It's not that he's opposed to it, but where's the guidebook to explain how love works? After rejecting his classmate, a group of girls confront him about it. He hates being interrogated about a feeling he doesn't understand, and they don't understand his mindset, even when he says he doesn't get it. They write him off as rude and paint him in a bad light that messes with his head. He was ignorant of both the physical and emotional depth of love and attraction. The girls, unwilling to understand his perspective and siding with a girl he rejected, they call him cruel. This begins to eat at Ko. Because is he really that bad of a guy? He didn't ask for someone to like him. He didn't ask for the girls to interrogate him. Yet now these conversations and events begin to fester in his mind, which leads to him becoming restless at night. As he becomes restless, he starts going on walks at night to get his energy and jitters out, and in some moments of freedom and confusion, he meets Nazuna. Now, as I want you to go watch the series, I won't go into detail as to how he meets her and what their first encounter looks like, but Nazuna uses a phrase that I began to use as my personal life mantra. Why do people stay up late at night? It's because they aren't satisfied with how they spent the day. Since watching this series, I have been reshaping my outlook on life based on this sentence. If I can't sleep at night, I ask myself, well, what did I do today? And what could I have done better? Should I do something now as well? For a night owl like me, I have gotten more sleep due to this phrase helping me prioritize things in my life differently. I've become better at pacing myself, and I've been able to set things aside and handle what I need to at my preferred pace when possible, and it's changed my life. This phrase begins to take root in Ko's mind as well. It begins with him starting to work on his outlook in life, and he begins to ask himself and others, what do we want, and what should we work towards? This begins to race in his mind as he also begins to experience new things with Nazuna that he never processed or noticed before. And as things go, he discovers that she is a vampire. She escaped humanity to enjoy the fun of the night, to go all out and do what you want, how you want to, without any issue. This appeals to Ko as he wishes to escape school, to escape it all, and wants her to turn him into a vampire. Only, there's a slight issue. In the setting of Call of the Night, for a vampire to turn a human into a vampire, there are a few steps to it. You need to have a vampire suck your blood, and as the human, you have to be in love with that very same vampire. Only then will you turn. However, as Ko doesn't fully understand love, this is where the emotional depth and exploration comes into play in this series. This series is how someone who is both burned out and embarrassed by romance has to let someone who doesn't understand it fall in love with her. As time goes on, they begin to tackle how this emotional maturity comes into play. A particularly good exchange is how Ko feels after Nazuna kisses him. Many people would assume the same thing as Ko. He can't get his first kiss out of his mind, and he feels a desire towards Nazuna that he hasn't felt before. To someone unfamiliar with her emotions, many would then think, hey, this must be love, right? Until he has Nazuna drink his blood and he doesn't turn. He doesn't understand why. He has these feelings of desire towards her. She then calmly explains to him that, although lust and romance typically go hand in hand and it's unhealthy to separate the two, he's only feeling lust in that moment. She then reveals that she can sense his emotions whenever she drinks his blood and helps him understand that it's a step towards falling in love with her, but lust and love are two separate but oftentimes connected emotions. Of course, Ko is beyond flustered by this revelation, which is for good comedy. However, it is a stepping stone on his journey of emotional discovery. Call of the Night gives a perspective on life that I think we all have and experience, but sometimes shirk away from talking about. As time goes on, someone who was friends with Ko when he was younger ends up meeting with him. She is concerned that he isn't going to school. However, she says, we're friends, aren't we? This causes him to think back. Sure, they played together as kids and talked, but a question he posed to Nazuna was, when do you know you're friends with someone? Which is a question that growing up, many of us have probably asked ourselves or someone close to that we trust. How do you go from acquaintances to friends? It's an emotional feeling and journey that we go on every time we meet someone and talk with them for extended periods of time. It's not necessarily rude to wonder or ask, but depending on the person, you make friends at the pace you work with. Nazuna just says, it just happens. However, in Ko's case, as he's struggling to fully learn and comprehend these confusing emotions, this is an important question. I would ask you, dear viewer, how quickly do you think you make friends? How quickly do your friends and family make friends? Relationships develop on their own time, and we have to work with this as it happens. However, it is up to each person to know where and how that works in life. Later on in this series, we find a situation where Ko sits in as a bystander. Another vampire has a friend. However, despite being in a friends-only relationship, he later admits that, I couldn't help it. I fell in love with my friend. This segment illustrates to Ko that love happens whether we want it to or not. Even if we know we shouldn't, it can still happen regardless. Love isn't rational, it's an emotional response that we happen upon. Now, the relationship dynamic between Ko and his vampire mistress is interesting. Nazuna is a vampire, but the other vampires in this city aren't entirely sure when she was turned, but she's been a vampire for a few decades and hasn't sired any offspring. She even goes out of her way to say in episode 1, it's not my policy to sire any. She's never turned a human into a vampire, and this has led to issues springing up between Nazuna and the other vampires. She's an outcast who can talk about sex and, quote, dirty things without issue, but becomes super flustered at the mention of romance. In season 1, it's not stated but shown that Nazuna is burnt out on love. She isn't against it, as when Ko says that he wants her to make him a vampire, she agrees to drink his blood, but she won't actively work to help him fall in love with her. Her response being, go ahead and fall in love if you want to. As far as we know, Nazuna was once human decades ago. She was turned, and something about that changed her outlook on love and romance. She gets flustered easily by it, and isn't outwardly against it, but she never seems excited at that prospect. We can theorize all day about what happened, but the relationship dynamic is interesting. Ko is 14. He is dating and trying to fall in love with an older woman, who is burned out on love and romance despite having at least a go at it before. She helps him learn and understand his emotions, and in turn, the more time she spends with him, the more she begins to open up to him. At first, she always seems to play it straight. She is the coolest one around because the night is for fun. But as things become more serious, everyone else in their friend group and inner circle, they begin to push her towards Ko as well. This leads Nazuna to opening up and confessing some things about herself. She becomes more honest to Ko. She spent so many years in isolation, swearing off love, that now she finds herself willing to once again open up and give it a shot. One heart is awakening, the other is opening. The true strength of Call of the Night is that it is an invitation to us. It invites us to watch the drama that is the lives of these two knuckleheads as it unfolds, as they both learn what true companionship means. It's a series that wants you to invest yourself into their world, and ends season 1 with a singular promise from Nazuna to Ko. I will try to become a vampire worth falling in love with. This, as a phrase, hits super hard after all of the shenanigans that we see these two engage with in season 1. Now there's a lot more that happens between them, especially in the vampire sex metaphor, and how being in a relationship with someone more experienced than you can lead to feelings of inadequacy and jealousy. But I wanted to highlight this review not as a deep dive into the metaphors, but rather why you should watch Call of the Night. It's a sincere story that draws you in, asks and poses some very difficult questions that some of us struggle with, and it relaxes your mind as the answer is offered via a lo-fi dreamscape. Also, there's a vampire hunter and implications that being a vampire isn't all it's cracked up to be, and some action sprinkled in, but I will leave that mystery and intrigue to the people who actually give this series a shot to watch and learn about it. If you truly want to see how the story progresses, just watch the opening for season 1 and season 2 and compare who is in the opening credits, and you'll see how that story's been evolving. That, and the music is phenomenal. The songs The Lost Time and Dotton are some of my favorite songs from the series, but there's more in the OST if you ever want to give it a listen. It's on a playlist. Until then, I'm a degenerate. No one asked. And I hope you guys have a good night. Now recently I've been streaming, and some of you have noticed the bottle in the background. That's because I have a discount code that I have not been very good at promoting, but Poggers reached out to me and gave me a discount code. So if you guys would like to support me and get a good tasting drink mix to add to water, go to poggerslifestyle.com and use code QUAIL, QUAIL, for 10% off your entire order. This is for the whole order, so stickers, drink mixes, shaker cups, all of it in the same cart is affected by my code. All of the money that I get from this discount code that Pogger sends me goes into buying materials for my streams. At the moment, that's mostly model and painting supplies for my minis because that's what I stream and do more consistent streams with. But eventually, I hope to also upgrade my computer as well. But bit by bit, we gotta get this working through. But I am thankful for the opportunity to work with them, and if I can ever sell enough to get my own flavor, I am between two ideas. My number one goal is a limeade with a hint of chili spice that I will call Feisty Latina, because I love limeade, and that extra warmth with the subtle sour flavor is exactly what I prefer after a workout session at the gym. This is my first choice as most of Pogger's drinks are quite sweet, and having a less sweet option I think would offer a nice contrast for people like me who aren't as keen on super sweet stuff. The watermelon flavor tastes like Sour Patch watermelons without the sour, and Rocket Pop does taste like a Rocket Pop if you've ever wanted to drink one. And they are good, don't get me wrong, but there's sweet and then there's super sweet, so sometimes it messes with me. And if I can't get the first flavor because somebody steals that idea or uses it first, I salute you, thank you for bringing that into the world. Then my second option is Clown Girl Sweat. But that one I'll keep on the back burner for now. But your boy is here to be true to himself, and I want to make sure that you guys know the kind of shenanigans you will be supporting in the future if you use my code. But thank you for your time, and I do hope your day as well. I just wanted to be transparent on all that, because I think it's funny, and I'm hoping to get a cheap laugh at the end of this. Take care until then.